Alright, I can't do this. It's like, for me it's impossible to stay silent when the camera is going. Plus I've been holding back the entire day. And I think I want the full range of experience in not 4K. Yeah, I think I can.
Så. Duas daí. Mano, os vamos ganhar não.
Alright, we can check how different this is. 4K super view. Right. I feel like a deer that's just been released from like the deepest dungeon you can find, like the deepest depth of Moria or something, right? Like the Balrog has kept me in his furnace and was trying to turn me into some kind of orc, right? Or an orb, right? He wanted to make a crystal out of me and then give it an oval shape and then say, I will look into you and your beauty will reflect back on me. You know, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the vilest of us all? I think that's the real question that's actually being asked for millions of years. There's a little mouse. You know, why wasn't it afraid? It could have been, you know, a giant cat. Or just a cat that disguises itself as a man. You know, it's very hard. I'm so weak from spending so many hours behind the laptop. It's incredible. And then smoking weed. And every time I smoke, I just go back to bed. And then I wake up and I feel so miserable. I'm not sure if this is this, you know, I'm never recommending. Just be sure about that one. You know, it says it fairly easy, you know, in the disclaimer of my podcast, you know, if something happens, it's your fault. It's like, you know, it's gonna be your bloody fault. You know, bloody seems okay, but if I would say fucking fault, you know, bloody is okay, you know, but it's just a word. Anyway, I mean, I feel like the word fuck has a certain, if you say it right, and that's what I like about this movie Demolition with Jake Gyllenhaal. Of course, if you want to start the journey with good old Jake, you know, Jake and Jill, then you could look at Donnie Darko, which I assume is also a book. I know the movie and I liked it. I mean, at the time I've also watched all these old, I mean, I've been trying to understand when I rub my nose. Something's itching me. Maybe I'm trying to say something. You know why I'm recording videos? Because I just want people to like me so that they buy my books, right? And if you listen to people like Chris Webster, you know, and you listen to what it takes to be successful and to earn a living, you know, that's what you need to do. You just have to suck people into your shit and get them so hooked that they want to buy a book. I mean, you have to sell yourself as the best version of what anyone would like to be. And then you just have to be that. You have to make yourself so sexy. Because freedom is pure sex. I mean, a rock and roller, you know, has seen death. And why do you think all these rock stars were like, not all of them. Some were just, it's just a show. But I would say that there are certainly, most definitely, certainly probably, I think that's from a Chris Webby song. You know, what I like about Chris Webby is not necessarily that he sings about fucking all these women or something, or getting head, you know. You never know if these stories are actually true. First of all, this might be just an image. And he says it, at least in one song, that some of the shit he sings about is just made up. Or maybe he just says that to, you know, take off the edge a little, that it seems a little less, you know, oh my god, did he really do that? Like, well, he said he just makes things up, and there's like, okay, maybe he's actually a nice guy, right? But I mean, he's pretty determined, and when you hear him rap, I feel uncomfortable recently walking with this thing extended to its full extent. But I like carrying it a bit like that not everyone directly realizes that I'm doing this, simply for the fact that I don't like it if people all know what I'm doing and then I'm doing it. And I think if I can film down, I can also film up. But you know, it's a bit how I keep it with myself. You know, I just like to look like a bit closed up. And the other problem is if I film like this, I'm a little bit uncertain as to where, you know, there may be people in it, and I want to keep other people out of my content as much as possible, because I've worked hard to get to the place where I can get a lot of attention and not let it get to my head. Because, you know, if you would give someone a camera that is crazy for love from other people, then they would be like this, like, you know, they would say things not because they feel them, but simply because it's the best thing. If you see people driving by on these electric scooters, they're like completely bored out of their wits. That's how it looks like. I mean, when you're really having a blast, it's when you have a, you know, these old scooters where you just had to use your legs to move forward. You know, then you're having a blast, because then you're really earning the toughness of your feet. I've driven these things in bare feet, but of course that was already a couple of years into my barefoot journey. And so, right, if I walk around like this, I constantly feel like there's somebody staring me in the eye. But because the camera is uncritical, you know, it doesn't tell me when I'm starting to be a bit like a materialistic prick, if you want to call it that way. You know, it's telling you, you know, you're like batting your eyes at yourself. It's like staring into the mirror and like, oh, I'm so pretty. You know, and that's how some women are in front of you. If they really like you, they're gonna be like, hello, because, you know, you're their mirror. And if you have a nice expression or you give them a good vibe when you look at them, they're like, oh, you know, they're gonna melt. But yeah, how many women do you want to melt into your arms? Well, you'd probably say lots of them, 200. I want to keep having different women for the rest of my life. Well, like, the only woman that you want to have in your life is the one that completely melts away when she sees you. That basically doesn't know anymore what her name is if you're in the room, right? But that's really hard to find. You have to have a lot of patience. You can't settle for something that's not really what you set out to have. I mean, I didn't really know what I was looking for, but certainly found something that is too important or too valuable to get rid of, and that just clings to me. And let's talk about spirits a little. I think that's, we can try a bit, like, don't look at me like this. Don't look at me like this. It's like, if you look at a woman in a way that says, you're hella unattractive right now, it's like, that's like sudden death. I mean, just imagine there are some women out there that just walk around and they're like, I'm the most sexy woman you will ever meet. I'm the perfect catch, please, stick with me, please come and live with me because you've got such a good vibe. And then you're like, yeah, I'm getting it. Yeah, some of these buttons I'll only open for my wife or when I'm in the boulder hall. Which is what brings me back to, am I going to go there to work? Or is this like spiritual work? Just going to the boulder hall, doing my thing, spreading a good mood, or trying to, or at least giving some male strength support, and then go back to my other life, which is sitting behind the screen or on my floor, occasionally smoking doobies and just making sure shit gets out. And so I'm constantly simply filming everything that I do, that I have enough footage to spread it over YouTube. And some of these things I film are my workflow. I've even filmed myself writing books, which you have seen by now. Now I started to teach LaTeX, by simply doing LaTeX and then talking about it, because as nice as it is to sit at home and work from home, I also have to say that I really hate it, right? So in terms of physical contact and emotional stability, you're all on your own. Like, there's nobody. If you want to have somebody put your hand on your shoulder, and maybe look over your shoulder or stand behind you and look at you in a "I love you so much, dear husband" way, then being alone in your room is exactly the opposite of that. But you can imagine that it would be so, right? I mean, if you have a woman in your life that you feel like you love, what you can do is, when you're alone and she's not there, you can just imagine that she's there. You can even imagine the presence of your children already, because if your love is honest and true, then there's a fairly certain guarantee that there's already one waiting for you, right? And that's how spirituality works, right? In this kind of modern world, this materialistic kind of world, it's a bit different. In this kind of world, you walk around and everything's random, nothing makes sense, and you need a microscope to understand anything at all, right? And you need to look at your at your bank account statements, and you have to constantly confirm with all these outside cues or hues. Hue is actually, it's the different shades of color, I would say that this is how you can say it. But you can also have a hue, right? I mean, like an idea, a hue could be basically just an opinion, you know, one shade of possible opinion, right? You have like green opinions. They're probably like really heartwarming and open because green is the heart chakra's color. Yeah, these chakras all have names in Sanskrit, but like I said, I'm not really a scholar. I remember some things, anahata maybe. You know, sometimes I know it, I just act like I don't, just to be a little bit more cool. You know, I don't care. You know, I'm really trying not to become a copy of other people that I've listened to. But it's hard to stay away from that. Because there's just so many people out there that you could copy. And I think today I'm gonna take the bit longer route. I started hiking now around at 12. It's getting really hot. Didn't expect that, you know. I was first actually wearing short trousers, and suddenly I had short trousers. Sometimes I'm not sure if I pronounce things right, but as I barely speak with anyone in German these days, I live in an English world, in a country that thinks they're German. Right, because everybody else is German, so they label themselves together, you know, then we must be all German. Even the ones that came from somewhere else, right? I mean, that's how we feel about foreigners. You know, they change us, they make us different. My precious. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's okay to be a little bit goofy, you know, but considering the heat, well, yeah, I mean, snap out of it. When I was in Africa, I mean, we had more heat than that. I was just sweating all day. I mean, you just did nothing than sweat. I spent 1 month in Tanzania, and I was visiting my girlfriend at the time, and every time you basically wake up, that was in the village called oh yeah, all right. It's called Mangula. Yeah, that's the one, Mangula. And it's in the Udzungwa rainforest or something. Or what's the other word for rainforest? Like very old forest where they often still, sometimes, nearly frequently discover new species. And they sometimes think that that must mean that this species just came into existence, because if humans didn't know about it before, then, you know, forests must still produce new organisms all the time. Well, it's possible. I mean, do you know how creation works? Do you really think the only thing that's happening is like what these people said evolution is? Well, it's possible, but it's also possible that forests have their own time, and that if the forest needs a certain critter to take care of, let's say, an infestation of cricket larvae, then maybe it can just manifest and just say, hey, come from the spirit world, you know, manifest as whatever, you know, you have to get a corporal form now, and then you just do your thing. And like, why is this all closed off? I think I'm just gonna take the quick route. Yeah, I just have no time to be silent. I mean, that's really messed up if you think about it. I mean, if you live your life and you have no time to be silent, that's pretty weird, isn't it? Yeah, that was neat, to say the least. Yeah. You see, I know what I'm doing. I'm talking, I'm taking the fastest route to where I want to be. And I cannot stay silent because that's an experiment I did with my parents. And if I just said nothing and literally feigned ignorance of their attempts to come into contact with me, but just like having the cheek to simply ignore it. I mean, your parents, they're the ones you're supposed to worship according to them, right? Parents these days, they forget that you also should and absolutely could, but certainly may, worship your children. Not like, you're a little princess. No, because unless you're a princess, you're not a princess. And nobody's gonna make you a princess. And we have no real princesses anymore. Because what a princess used to be was like honest and good, with the spirit of a child, so that she could warm the heart of a warrior who would have been given to her as a husband, as her protector, which means the woman becomes some kind of protege, somebody this ancient guardian spirit husband has been given the honor to take care of a young maiden, in a very delicate age where she needs a lot of strength and support, also sexually, because she would have to give birth at some point. And of course, the question could be, or should be, how young? Well, I think it depends on the woman, right? There's women that just want to have sex at a very young age, and the question is whether or not these are just gullible, destined to be used for pornography, right? And that's just the fodder, Maybe these are all women that came from post-war households where the men were weak, like really weak, right? It's like, the grandfathers died in war, so the sons already had no fathers left, and then the next generation has broken fathers, broken men as fathers that were sucked dry by the industry, like literally, like. But they also wanted to give it because they were like, hey, my country's great, I'm a patronist. I'm a patriot. A patronist? I think that's something else. I mean, this took me to get back on the horse and go to the boulder hall. I just want to make sure that you don't think this was easy. I mean, this was easy at a certain point, when I had packed my things and I went through the sequence for the 100th time in my mind. Wait a second, am I being lured away? Is this a trap? Are they going to make me work for them? Do I have to work for money now? I just want to do what I want. Yeah, so I just keep preparing my stuff, right? Because I don't know. I mean, I'm in this situation where my parents are paying my apartment, and to them it's like, now we have him by the balls, right? He's gonna do what we want. And then you're like, yeah, I don't think so. I think I'm just gonna still do what I want. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna continue to do what I want. And if you don't like that, right? I mean, that's what I said to him yesterday. I mean, I got quite a lot of cheek, but I just see the situation for what it is, right? I tell people my parents are paying my apartment. That's the truth. And they give me 120 euros on top of that. That's just enough. That's just enough to make you feel like a little underappreciated, That's like, could have been 200, could have been 150, could have been also 160. But then it's 120 plus the apartment. So, what am I complaining about? But that's how the mind works, I'm a greedy asshole. but I also don't ask for more. And it wasn't me that suggested this transition. That's what you have to understand. My parents said, I think it's time for you to move out. Hey! And then they gave me, I'm missing out on a lot of stuff. Like, I could be collecting raspberries or blueberries or whatever and make jam out of it, and I think it's almost time. I'm a little bit afraid that it will break me, but I also really have to have projects that get me out of the house, because I'm being suffocated by all those feelings. You know, do I like this? Do I not like this? How does it make me feel? You know, I'm allowing my parents, to pay my apartment. I've gone through what happened, why it happened, why they offered it. There's a reason. I don't have to proclaim on this one again. But they, you know, it's like, you know, you're gonna have an apartment. Like, would you have said no? You know, I could have been really proud and I could have said, no, I'm gonna do this myself. While at the same time feeling how the entire house completely rejected me. And, you know, my father never really liked me. You know, that's an honest truth. He never really liked me because I'm not a sucker. You know, I don't suck for love. You know, I give it freely, but it's like hard love. You know, I don't brush my teeth. You know, you want to kiss me? Make sure you have no problem with that. I mean, I don't have bad breath. At least I'm not hiding it. Plus, if I would be with a woman, I think, if it's a proper woman, I think I would be a little bit more satisfied just by having her. That I actually would start to eat less. But, you know, I'm trying to be a bit less goofy. And I think it's just good to get it out of my system on the way to the boulder hall. Because once I'm there, I sometimes feel like I just have to shut up. But I didn't come here to shut up, which is why if I'm in the presence of people, I'm gonna talk until they leave. You get it? So I'm gonna talk until they leave. And then I have what I want, right? Then I have my quiet time again. You know, and I've been doing this with basically anyone. And it works every time. Nobody can stand me. Because I'm so reluctant to give in that people just have to admit defeat. You know, I'm just gonna play frisbee longer than you. Right? And you just want to see if I'm gonna break. Right? You want to stretch me to that point. You actually want to get me to that point. But when you get me to that point, you're disappointed in yourself. You're like, what the fuck, you know? I thought I was able to trigger him in some kind of way. You know, I once had an appearance with a guy, and this guy he is the boss of a cinema where I used to work. And I went there because I'd asked him if I can take, it's like an audience, right? He didn't even know what I wanted. You know, I went there, I wanted to talk to him. He made me wait. I wanted to take pictures of his cinema for some reason. I think it was just a battle of strength. And I sat down and he was waiting and I was just sitting there. And then he came to me and he said, he asked me from across the room, are you here for me? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he said, yeah, I will come soon. And what happened was, he did come, but first he showed me probably for, it felt like an hour, could have been half an hour. He showed me pictures from his holiday. Actually, at first he asked me, I first told him what I wanted. And then he started giving me this speech. And after some time he got up and she looked at me. He was like, fuck, he's still here. You know, maybe I'm not as awful then. Because that's what this was about. You know, that was what it was about for me. That I had the feeling he thinks he's really awful, or that I don't like him. You know, but I have no problem with him. I just realized that he's who he is. And I don't know what people say behind his back. You know, I just hear things. But most of all, I also have a feeling, you know, just to be a little bit careful around that guy. Just to be a little bit careful around that guy. To not get, you know, allow him to suck you in too much. Because if you're a gullible person, you know, you're just gonna suck some old dude's balls. And then cock. And he's just gonna fuck you. And you're gonna be his bitch. You're gonna be his bitch for the rest of his life. Probably. Not him specifically, but probably other men as well. And so what happened with my father is probably completely inadequate to discuss here. But I'm just trying to wrap my head around what's happening in my own life, and to confirm that the choices I've made are also in accordance with what I believe is this kind of universal law, karma, right? You give energy, you get energy, you give energy. You give energy, you get energy. In some form, right? If I do something today, if I keep uploading videos on YouTube, you know, I'm probably because most people that continue to do what they're doing in a large scale and frequently are going to get at least a few more subscribers. You know, that's my firm belief. Just as my firm belief is, if I continue to post on Instagram, eventually somebody will try to, you know, boost me or help me, or just say, you know, all right. It's really hard to say, but I think it's part of the fight. You just have to keep doing it. And the message that I'm bringing is a really tough one, and you have to be very delicate about it, because people are very sensitive about anything these days. You know, they're like drowning in fear. And from a spiritual level, from a, you know, I could have been a monk once, you know? I mean, I keep short hair also on purpose, so that I keep myself away from the suffering of the world. And in that sense, I'm probably a bit like a renunciate. Only, it seems like I don't renounce everything, but I renounce certain things. Which is, for example, I renounce places like McDonald's. Any form of, like, industrially processed. Yeah, okay, I buy canned kidney beans, right? And like canned tomatoes. You know, these kinds of things. And I already said that I did eat the smoked fish from the shops. And what I can really not say is, you know, I would really like to walk there, but I'm honestly not sure where that's gonna get me. But I also feel like I have no time for a lot of sidetracking, because I'm simply busy. And when I walk here, you know, it's just repetition. Why do I walk also next to the street? I could avoid. It's just the fastest way. You know, the advertisement is just something that comes along with it. It's just the fastest way, you know. I don't want to take too much time walking to places. I just want to be where I want to be. And I don't know what that is. I could have actually, I mean, nobody's forcing me to go to the boulder hall today. Nobody's forcing me to go to the boulder hall. I actually don't like these shoes at all. I fucking hate these shoes. But the reason I want to go there is because I feel weak. Like really weak. Like my back is weak. Because I'm just sitting all day. So just going hiking, I feel like, isn't really doing the trick. Just going hiking isn't really doing the trick. So I'm going to the boulder hall because I need strength. Because I'm really struggling to write this book or to finish it. It's not actually writing it, it's just copy paste. But you know, just copy paste turns into very dull. But I also realized I couldn't write with smoking cannabis. It's impossible. Cannabis is basically sawing off your roots because you become so lightheaded. There's nothing I can do but sleep. And I've been confirming this now for a number of days, that every time I smoke, I start to fall asleep. And then the question is, do I need to sleep? But the problem is, if I don't smoke, I just cannot sleep. A better way than smoking would probably be ingesting it as oil. Damn it! I have no time for shit. No, I don't have time for shit anymore. I mean that. You know, all the stuff that I want to do, I just can't do it.